Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank to the organizers because this is a great challenge for me and a great opportunity to visit Vilnius, first time in this beautiful city. So at evening today, we'll have an opportunity to get more impressions from your beautiful city. Now, a little bit regarding Ukraine's experience. My name is Roman, and I represent a company originates from Ukraine. It's ISSP. Well, we believe that from our name, ISSP is a short name. The full name is Information Systems Security Partners. From our name, you can recognize what we are doing and what we are particularly focused about. So we are information security professionals. We are a corporate, privately held company with the offices wide over CIS region. Well, I personally responsible for operations within Ukraine and for sales operations within CIS, so I'm a little bit sales guy. A little bit, I know some insights from a technical, but I have some technical background, but still sorry. Well, in some particular precise details, I can be, let's say, more or less expressed in common details, in common way. What I'm going to tell you about. To have a, let's say, to tell you a little bit a short story before going to my topic. Maybe you are aware about this guy. It's a chief research officer in F-Secure, Mikko Hypanen, and while TED conference, he expressed and he states basically he identifies three sources of information security threats. It's criminals, it's hacktivists, and government. Governments are, let's say, it's a very romantic topic. You are aware about Stuxnet, Flame, and other viruses, but it's a separate topic. Hacktivists are guys which are aimed against governments. Yeah, so they are driven by. Now they are driven by protest. Before they were driven by self-expression or something, first hackers, yeah? And the criminals and the cyber criminal, it's basically a topic of my presentation. So I'd like to focus on this particular topic because criminals, they are precisely aimed to get money out of this business. So this is a business basically. And going to their benefits originates from our money, yeah, from corporate money, from personal wallets. So I can express an idea that all of us, we can be split in two groups of people. First group are those who faced online attacks. Can you raise your hand, for instance, if you ever faced online attack or at least your car was stolen or something? Okay, nice. Well, maybe in that particular way, we have, let's say, the rest of us who belongs to the other group, yeah, to happy guys. But this said but true, maybe, but true, that the second group of people, they are exposed to attacks, so I can assume that they will be attacked sooner or later. Because even now, my online banking, my personal account, it's exposed to online attacks. So I do not have a clue if, for instance, my bank now face an attack. Yeah. So it's very serious, and this market, this is not a market. I would say this is an industry of cyber threats. They have lots of tools, and especially, for instance, if we will take particularly, we will take banking fraud. There is lots of ways, lots of vectors and tools. Well, just some of them mentioned on the screen that are aiming to be a weapon. And this industry has segments compared to weapon producers. It's, let's say, factories, developers, and guys who take criminals. Yeah. So the same is in cybersecurity space. There is developers, which are focused on developing malware and selling this malware to another guys, and there is DDoS attackers and so on and so on. They form a chain which is aimed to pursue a particular aim. And my agenda is to speak about a little bit about retail banking fraud and corporate banking fraud, and precisely from Ukraine Outlook. So I will name you some numbers, I will show you some figures we have in Ukraine, and I will show you two particular examples of an attack that we and as ISSP, how we build defense against this particular types of attacks. And why Ukraine, for instance? Ukraine, it's very attractive for hackers because of the following facts. First of all, well, I will name it just. First of all, it's quite intelligent engineers. Second is cheap human resource. Third is we have let's say low criminal punishment on economical crime. So in other words, we have a decriminalization of lots of economical crime states. Big territory, for instance, in Ukraine we have around 150 banks operating. Russian speaking, so we can aim targets as well Russian banks and entire CIS region. So all these factors produce a high zone of risk inside of Ukraine and a plenty, let's say, ground to perform cyber attacks. These official numbers of EMA, it's let's say non-profit organization of banks. So we saw, let's say, end of 2013, we have lots of ATM fraud, we have lots of e-banking fraud. Now it's going lower a little bit. Well, I guess because we have more problems at the moment, not only purchasing somebody's money, but maybe some other reasons can take effect. But it's let's say figures in numbers, not in a quantity of money. For instance, if we are facing 1,000 ATM attacks per quarter, means that the amount of money stolen is not equal to amount of money stolen using e-banking fraud. So e-banking is in more and more times impacts more and more banks in Ukraine. Just a few words about retail fraud. So now we have a trend of increasing retail fraud in a vector of social engineering and vector of cards stolen and fake cards, fake plastic. It's not a secret that, for instance, if you own a cheap card, you have a MAC stripe on the other side of your chip card, and this MAC stripe holds all information that is essential for attacker. So let's say your card is exposed if you give to somebody, or I can't explain why banks emboss CVV2 code on the other side of the card also. That's also, let's say, like a PIN code. It's not a big problem to remember that. So two attacks which have the most trend in Ukraine is card stolen and fake cards, and card not present attacks, definitely through internet. Mine card was compromised twice. It's chip card. First, I had a disposal in Kazakhstan. I was in Ukraine, basically. It was in Kazakhstan, and the second one in Ukraine. Well, chip card makes, let's say, some level of insurance, so I get my money back, but I faced some difficulties with blocking a card and reissuance. Social engineering, it's quite interesting topic because now in Ukraine, it's a lot of different examples, and the most colorful example is, for instance, if somebody would like to to sell something and place this on the internet, it's exposed to attacks that attacker can call and even advise, let's say, tell me your card number and I will send you the money amount on your card. And can you, let's say, reach your ATM and give a call to me back? I will give you the particular instructions how to transfer, how to make, let's say, to allow me to transfer your money. And as it appears, not everybody are aware that using ATM machine and their own card, they can transfer money out of their card, but not vice versa. So they just put a card in ATM, press the card money transfer option, put a number of the cards of the bad guy, and press the transfer. And it appears that the money runs out of their own card, but they were expecting, you know, to have money from to have some fundings on it. Yeah, it's funny, but you need to be more suspicious. Old school still exists. ATM robbery, it's a man style, very impressive, but less efficient. In Ukraine, we have a very low statistic of that, because well, we had a very low statistic of that in 2013. Now, in 2014, we have lots of these issues in the east part of Ukraine, but this statistics is not, let's say, reflects the real market situation, because ATM robbery in Kiev, it's a very, very rare situation at the moment. Because we have a more sophisticated tools, and this sophisticated tools is designed to bring more efficient, to bring more efficient. So the total impact, I have numbers for 2012, but okay, for the total impact of crime which were used using these particular tools is a little bit about $1 million. And the annual growth rate is quite impressive. It's almost 50%. So before we had 3,000 ATM fraud incidents, but these incidents which has been registered means that lots of incidents was never registered. Were never registered. For friends of mine and me personally, we identify schemers and ITM, and after telling to give a call to a bank, maybe I do not know if they have this registered in Ministry of Internal Affairs or something. So quite big numbers. But once again, you need to be more suspicious to and follow simple instructions to avoid this type of threat. But if we will, for instance, we can be very suspicious, but we never avoid targeted attacks aimed, for instance, for to be if some malware is resident on ATM machine. I can now I can unclose some example. It was 2 years ago in Kiev. We had a call from a bank, a very little small bank in Kiev. They owns 11 ATM. Can you imagine 11 ATM over multi-million Kiev? It's nothing. But they faced an APT attack, and they have a total losses in about something about $1 million were disposed out from these ATMs in 2 hours. Well, they were frustrated, really, and the bad thing is that these ATMs were under the maintenance of the bank, and they were connected to the banking network. So they thought that it could be, let's say, some way or some insider attack. So that's why they turned to ISSP to provide a forensic on a particular malware that was founded on ATMs. By the way, the funny stuff is that when the attack was performing, how a bank noticed that the ATMs are empty. One of the ATM machines is installed in a lobby of the hotel, and the receptionist mentioned, then out of a sudden a bucket of money arise from a dispenser. And yeah, he noticed and looks suspicious, and then give a call to a bank. This one ATM left untouched, and all the money remained inside the ATM, but the rest of ATMs were empty completely. We found, let's say, a set of files, a resident and an ATM machine hardware. After analyzing it, was parts of a Trojan, which and we found the self-extractor of this Trojan. The password was identified, and we get an access to the files of this package. One of the components belongs to remote admin utility, and after launching this utility in a sandbox, we explored through the register keys. It was binary keys, but we decode them and found the email that was supposed to be for a reason to get the notification once the remote admin program were installed in ATM. Other parts was addicted to some utilities. One of the utility for removing Windows files protection. Other Trojan aimed to get updates, or let's say other parts of Trojans, and it holds a URL. And after investigations through this URL and after investigations through the email address, we found some particular details of possible owner of this attack. I just, briefly tell you about this of this forensic, but it was quite interesting for us, for our lab, to perform this action and to find the guy who were responsible for this attack. So yeah, let's switch to e-banking fraud. E-banking fraud is very interesting because, as I said, e-banking is exposed for attacks 24 hours per day, and the e-banking attack is very sophisticated. It's quite hard to launch it. It costs lots of money, tools to perform this attack, but it's quite efficient. So let's go through the anatomy of this attack, which particular steps it consists, and how, well, generally, more or less, it performs. So we identify 3 major steps in e-banking attack. It's account takeover scouting step, and basically the attack itself. The first stage is aimed to place a malware on our victims' machines. And for instance, 5 years ago, just a simple password and maybe soft container of the certificate was the only security for the banking customer. And to avoid this security, the malicious guys, they need to get your password, your soft certificate, for instance, and login maybe, yeah? But now, security tools is going to be more sophisticated, and the malware is going to be more sophisticated. So now we are facing a man-in-the-browser attack. It like something is resident on your particular program or browser or application, which can modify in some way your transaction. And more versatile tools, which is used by attackers. These tools cost more and more money and more sophisticated. So they are not, let's say, using the same software. The second stage is scouting. The interesting thing is that if we took over particular accounts and we have a control over these accounts, not all accounts are interesting for us as a particular victim. So we can split the accounts in 2 groups. First group, accounts we will use for taking their money, okay? So victim number 1. And victim number 2 these accounts we will use as a proxy accounts to perform an attack. Because if we will we need to dispense some money. Somehow we need to get this money on our account, or we need to get this money physically. So somehow we need to perform, we need to handle the infrastructure to transfer money through a number of accounts, initially get it to real money, or to at least to our accounts, maybe offshore accounts or something. For this stage, simple banking security can identify accounts, and they have a blacklist of accounts which is not using, or they were malicious. So the attackers, they develop in a way to use a legitimate account of other companies to act like a proxy. So if we are transferring money from this account, we can transfer this money to different accounts of organizations, and these organizations could be in a list of the beneficiaries for this account. So this operation is normal, but we own these accounts, we have control over them. So after that, we can perform a new transaction, and so on and so on. This is like a chain effect and chain transactions, but all these accounts should be controlled by attacker. And when we have everything ready and prepared, we can launch an attack. We have a compromised account. Well, all these accounts in a schema are compromised, basically. And we start to transferring money. We need to have maybe a DDoS attack aimed on e-banking service, or we need a host system shutdown, perform a host system shutdown action by our malware for at least for accounts, and not mention that the money left their account, correct? So it's quite obvious. And during a business day, we can transfer money through the name of this operation is cascade money transferring. So we can transfer money through different accounts to deposit cards, or to our accounts abroad. Now it's quite complicated in Ukraine to transfer money abroad, but anyway. And these proxy banks, they should have a very low security, because when the victim mentioned then that the money left its account and the victim was attacked, the next minute they will call to their bank and try to perform investigation. And if the proxy banks, it should be quite small banks without not without security role, but with let's say not developed security role, and it would be very hard task for them to identify and perform and hold on the forensics. So they can, let's say, it will cost them 1, 2, 3 days to get insights of what happened and so on. And during the business day, the attack should be finished, definitely. So how to resist? To perform a security against this type of attack, we need to identify our customer. To identify our customer, it's a quite challenging stuff, because to resist a man-in-the-browser attack, we need to get more and more footprints from our customer to identify that this customer now has a resident malware, or it's a normal behavior from the customer. While man-in-the-middle attack are less sophisticated, so we need just to get some network parameters and session parameters as well, because session parameters during man-in-the-middle attack, they will be changed. But man-in-the-browser is very sophisticated. And to present you in a very common way this schema of anti-fraud mechanism, so during a transaction, we have some particular footprint of a banking client. And we can build 2 filters. One filter has a pattern of, let's say, a white customer footprint. Another filter have a pattern of black customer footprint. Well, let's say this is a legitimate transaction, and this is a malicious transaction. And when a transaction runs through these 2 filters, it has some scoring. And in case of scoring is above the threshold, we can count this transaction as malicious. Definitely, we need to remember not to forget about machine learning. So we need to get added context and have a database of these footprints and a mechanism that will make our filters more and more advanced in a way that it gets more and more information about the customer. So this is how it looks like in a system. So we have some particular actions, and these actions has a negative or a positive scoring. For instance, if we change a password or network parameters or machine parameters, for instance, if our online banking solution can get MAC address, some rough understanding of a software which is installed on a computer of our customer, we can get the customer profile. And some changes in this profile can have a negative score. If a transaction has the same profile, it will have the positive score. Okay? So, and afterwards we get a transaction score level, and we can compare it with the average threshold. But this mechanism works only while a transaction is running through the system. So we need to decide we have an attack or we have a legitimate transaction during the attack. But also we need to maintain an intelligence. We need to maintain, let's say, an early fraud detection mechanism. Because as you remember, the attack itself has lots of stages. And when the attack is performing, we are on the last stage. But before, the malicious guys, they can identify themselves as well. Very, very simple illustration in the console. So it could be IP addresses or some other identifiers of a machine. And we have a clear vision of a connection to a particular banking account. It could happen that an accountant in an organization maintains 3 or 5 organizations, or it could be offshore, how it goes when we do not host our accountant, but we use it as a service, yeah? So, outsource, yeah. So, but we can identify this particular customer. In case of, we have an emerging IP address or an emerging machine, and out of sudden this machine have access to a number of accounts of our customers. This could be a scouting stage, correct? So we can make a forensic if this particular machine was ever in our system before, and at least we can give a call to one of our customer and identify if this is a fraud performing or not. In this particular, in this early stage, we can assume that this is more or less malicious, yeah? So this looks suspicious. And this is a very effective method. Some numbers regarding anti-fraud mechanism that was implemented in the biggest bank in Ukraine. So we have a prevention rate almost 100% in money, but to reach this prevention rate, we spent almost 3 years to, let's say, tune our system in a way to work very efficient. So, and if, as you see, we have lots of fraud preventions on early stage, not even on attack itself. Yeah, we use a common enterprise tools SIAM solution from our side for that. Now we performing this anti-fraud out from the cloud, and we do not need banking information regarding account numbers or something from banks to secure their accounts. So we can use hashes, and we can mask the essential information which is related to banking secret. So we are compliant fully with all, let's say, with all banking regulations, and more banks we maintain, more threat intelligence we own to share this threat intelligence with our rest of our customers. Well, my last slide is dedicated not to ISSP, but to some processes which runs through a public-private partnership in Ukraine, which also helps our company, our customers to combat cyber threats. So we have CERT team in Ukraine, and we have a number of, let's say, non-NGOs, not-profit organizations. It's just one of these. This is EMA, organization which maintain a number of banks. We have other organization called NABU. It's a National Ukrainian Banking Association. We are active member of NABU, of EMA, and other non-profit organizations to share experience, share knowledge, and taking in account this particular example, just only for the last year, this CERT team with EMA, they identify a big botnet in Ukraine. Almost 80% of computers, they were in Ukraine, and they compromised around 40 million records, cards, account numbers, and so on. And that's basically a reason when this botnet was identified and terminated, that's basically a reason why we have a reduction of e-banking fraud. Because these bad guys, they got, let's say, they was attacked, and now they need to recover. So it's quite efficient, and I can send you the links to the detailed materials of how that was performed and what was basically the result. It's very impressive. Thank you for your attention, and if you have questions, I would be happy to address them. Anyway, maybe during lunch or some other periods.
Oh, I think so. Maybe after lunch we will have discussion about all things.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Thanks once again.